What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you an early preview for Cronos The New Dawn, an upcoming survival horror title set to release on September 5th. I am able to bring you this particular preview, of course, because I received an early look at the introduction portion of the game via Bloober Team, the publisher and developer of this one. I think technically the embargo was yesterday, so you've probably already seen a couple of videos on it, but they reached out a couple weeks ago and asked if I wanted to take a look at it. But basically what we are taking a look at here is the first couple of hours of gameplay that kind of get your feet wet as you march your way through whatever this disgusting biomass happens to be. But ultimately, it's a game that does, I would say, a lot of cool and interesting things. Mostly the vibe, the aesthetic of it is really interesting to me personally, but in terms of like gameplay, it's kind of a cross between things like Resident Evil and something like Dead Space. But what is this game? What is it all about? Well, we play as a traveler, which is an individual working for some mysterious group called the Collective that is looking into whatever it is that doomed humanity, led to some sort of apocalypse in particular. We travel to the future where the apocalypse has happened in search for various anomalies. These anomalies are going to lead you to the past where you're going to harvest the essence of certain individuals as you seek out the cause of all of this carnage and destruction. The catch there being that all of those people and essences you harvest will ultimately have an impact on your journey. They're a little vague about exactly what this means, and this introductory portion ends like right as you get to that point, but there does seem to be at least some sort of implied gameplay mechanic there. But in order to get to those time-traveling anomalies, you first have to, of course, make your way through this hellscape of what I believe is meant to be Poland. And in order to do that, we're going to have to face off with these biomass creatures known as orphans. And you can also find, of course, notes and things that kind of give you hints about the end of the world and what happened. And the gist of it seems to be some sort of sickness that quickly swept upon humanity and turned them all into these ravaging creatures. But these biomasses' urge to consume also extends to themselves, leading to one of the core combat mechanics. You see, these gangly-looking creatures also have a propensity to try to absorb the fallen versions of each other, meaning that once you kill one, the others may very well go to try to eat it, and that will make them into stronger variants of these creatures, basically just making them harder to defeat in combat. So ideally, what you want to do is prevent them, of course, from actually doing that. We're going to do that via good old-fashioned firepower, quite literally fire in some cases, as fire just generally seems to be kind of a big part of the mechanics, both allowing us to interact with the environment, burning our way past bits of this biomass, but it will also allow you to burn bodies to keep other entities from consuming them and powering up as well. The one, I would say, kind of boss encounter of this particular experience that I had also functioned off of a fire mechanic. You had to use fire to expose its weak points that you could then shoot at, and you had to do that a few times in order to actually defeat the boss. But in the midst of all that combat and trying to prevent these enemies from merging, another thing, as with pretty much any survival horror that you have to manage, is of course things like your ammo and your overall resources as you make your way through the world. So you will have access to a couple of firearms, a basic pistol as well as a shotgun in this particular introductory portion that I played. Each of those has the ability to charge up shots, which are obviously much more powerful variants, which can help you save on ammunition, but have the downside of being slow, and some of these creatures move a little faster. You can get around a good portion of that, though, by simply powering up your individual weapons and your flamethrower by bringing energy, the sort of primary resource that you'll be gathering up, to the various sort of checkpoints. Here you can spend that energy, as well as a couple items like cores, for instance, that you'll find laying around, to upgrade either your suits or your weapons. Your weapons will get more powerful, have more ammo capacity, charge up faster for those charge shots as an example, but you can also upgrade your suit, which is going to do things like give you more inventory capacity, more life, the usual stuff. Now, another important function of these checkpoints, though, is that this is where you are going to save. So the game does use a checkpoint system, meaning that it'll auto-save at certain moments, but by and large, your main manual saves come from going to one of these checkpoints and, manually making a save. And this is also where you can find your stash, as you are working with a bit of a limited inventory, and you can, of course, stash things in between these. But it looks like a huge chunk of the gameplay, as you would probably expect with a survival horror title, is basically going up against all of these enemies, solving some basic puzzles, while also trying to conserve your resources. Now, one of the elements of these puzzles that I just mentioned is both collecting items to open the way, such as, finding a way through doors, bolt cutters to cut off chains, keys to open individual doors, the flamethrower to get past certain areas of biomass, but there is actually another thing called the emitter, which will allow you to interact with temporal oddities. At the most basic level, you just activate these and it raises a bridge or something. But some of them are slightly more complicated, as you have to get to the area at which you can activate them, or in some cases you have to activate them intermittently. That is to say, turn them off and on as needed to progress through certain areas or get to certain secrets, that kind of thing. And that's kind of, at least seemingly, what you're looking at in between the actual combat portions. Now, our primary enemy, I believe they call them orphans, in addition to their primary merge mechanic, also do have a few other things. There were at least a few different types of them. The basic ones are relatively easy to kill with a couple charge shots. The upgraded versions from when they merge are obviously stronger and faster and can deal more damage, but as you progress, you'll also find some that will do things like spit acid at you. There are these little crawly guys that will just kind of blow up into acid once you get to a certain point, and as a result of that, trying to fight those guys in the most resource-efficient manner possible is the way to go, as you can buy resources technically, like bullets and the like, but it is extremely expensive, and so you really want to rely on what you find and what you can craft. Crafting takes the form of chemicals and just metal scrap, at least, that you could find laying around, that you could then use to craft into bullets and whatnot to use. And I can say, from having played through this, resources are definitely a little scarce. You will run out. You will have to find creative ways around enemies that are probably too numerous to just outright shoot to death. But one thing I am a little curious about, because that might just be the introductory portion, because one thing the Steam page actually mentions is that your suit and you will get more powerful as you start extracting essences throughout the story. So I am a little bit curious if there ever comes a point where resources are less of a concern, or if you can get overpowered to the point where it just doesn't matter anymore. Because at least here in the beginning, it's definitely something you have to actively watch out for, and I would just be curious how consistent that remains over the course of the journey. Because at least here in the early hours, I was absolutely doing things like aiming for limbs, legs in particular, to knock them down so you could stomp on them, the traditional explosive barrels to kill them with fire, aiming for the head to deal maximum damage, trying to interrupt their merges, things like that. So at least as of right now, in the early hours, it definitely seems like they nailed the experience that they were going for. The whole place feels creepy, combat can certainly be tense but never gets overwhelming, and the vibe is incredibly unique. And at least for me, that is what I took away from this early preview of the game. More than anything, I'm interested in the aesthetic of it. I am admittedly curious where the story is going, but I've seen enough post-apocalypses and time travel that I think I kind of get the gist of this. But nonetheless, it does look extremely cool. It's tense. It's kind of a different experience for me, at least, as I don't play a ton of survival horror personally, and hopefully that will translate well for other people. But as far as this early preview is concerned, I like what I've taken a look at here, and I'm looking forward to playing the rest of it when it launches here in just a few short weeks. So hopefully you are also looking forward to that. If you are, or you just enjoyed this video, by all means, like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. Let me know how you feel about this one down in the comment section below, but regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.